Imagine, like scoring 10 runs, hitting this massive, just stadium-shaking grand slam, and then watching your cornerstone franchise hitter strike out 5 times in the exact same game.
Yeah, it's wild.
Right? I mean, welcome to the totally schizophrenic first week of the Minnesota Twins 2026 season. We're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is, well, honestly, it's really murky right now.
Murky is almost an understatement.
Oh, totally. So welcome to this custom deep dive. It's perfectly tailored for you, the learner, who wants to cut through the absolute noise of early season baseball. We have a massive stack of sources today to help you out.
We really do. A lot of data to parse through.
Exactly. We're pulling from, a local analysis like the Locked On Twins show, the Gleeman and the Geek Deep Dives, official box scores, and, of course, the ever-depressing injury reports.
Yeah, those are always rough to read.
They really are. So our mission for you today is to figure out what is real, what is a complete mirage, and what is a massive red flag.
And it is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters right now. I mean, we are observing a team currently defined by just massive, glaring contradictions.
Right. Like, the extremes here are just wild.
Exactly. The early data points we are pulling from this first handful of games are simultaneously alarming and miraculous. And trying to chart a trend line through them, well, it requires looking past the surface-level box scores.
Yeah, you look at this first week, and you have this 38-degree Minnesota Classic win, powered by the most unlikely hero imaginable.
Just a great story.
But then almost immediately, you have a 7-1 loss where the bats completely froze over. You have a starting rotation living on the absolute edge of a cliff. And, we even have a historic managerial meltdown over a robot umpire?
Yeah, we definitely have to talk about that later.
Oh, we will. So to really understand the whiplash of this team, I think we need to start with the highest high of the week to show just how unpredictable this game can be. The Tristan Gray roster spot miracle.
Calling it a miracle feels entirely appropriate, honestly. When you look at the context of his career, the specific architecture of this roster, and just the sheer statistical improbability of what he is doing.
Right, because he was brought into spring training as, organizational filler?
Basically, yes. He was not even supposed to be the primary utility guy.
And yet, here we are, right after the first week of the season, and he is sitting on top of the depth chart. So how is he actually performing? Because the numbers I'm looking at seem completely absurd.
They are absurd. He is leading the team with 8 RBIs.
Wow.
And to put that into a broader, league-wide perspective, that does not just lead the Twins. That actually has him tied for 4th in all of Major League Baseball in RBIs over this opening stretch.
We really, top 5 in the entire league.
Yes, top 5. We are talking about a 30-year-old left-handed hitter who is fundamentally a triple-A lifer. I mean, he has spent nearly a decade riding buses in the minor leagues.
Playing in places like Durham and Omaha.
Exactly. Just watching younger, highly touted prospects get called up over him year after year. The mental grind of that existence is immense. You are brought in to be an emergency glass break option.
Right. You play for a few days when someone tweaks a hamstring, and then you are quietly sent back down.
Precisely. But instead of just filling a jersey, he is delivering the crown jewel of the entire week.
Oh, man. Friday's 10-4 win over the Tampa Bay Rays. That was incredible.
It really was. The Twins put together this massive 7-run 7th inning.
The crowd is going wild. The momentum is completely shifted. And who caps it off? Tristan Gray, a grand slam to right field.
And looking at the highlight, it was not just a lucky wall scraper that caught the win.
No, not at all. It looked like an absolute rocket off the bat.
The data on that specific swing is staggering. The exit velocity on that grand slam left his bat at a blistering 110 miles per hour.
Wait, 110 miles per hour. So how hard is that really? Where does 110 miles per hour put him in the grand scheme of major league hitters?
That is elite upper echelon contact. Hitting a baseball 110 miles per hour is not a product of luck.
Like, you can't just close your eyes and swing.
No, you cannot accidentally hit a ball that hard. It requires a flawless kinetic chain.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that mean?
So the energy has to transfer perfectly from his back leg, up through his hips, into his torso, and finally through his hands. And it all culminates in the absolute perfect barrel of the bat meeting the baseball.
Oh, wow.
It tells you that, at least in that specific moment against the Rays, his mechanics were as good as anyone playing the sport. His bat speed was top tier, and his plane was perfect.
That is the part that feels like finding a winning lottery ticket in the pocket of an old winter coat. You put the coat on because you are freezing, you reach into the pocket, and suddenly you are holding something immensely valuable.
That is a great analogy.
Thanks. But the irony here is what really stands out to me. The Twins front office spent all winter agonizing over their lineup's vulnerability to left-handed pitching.
They really did. It was a huge talking point.
They desperately needed right-handed bats,
Yeah.
and yet the guy saving them right now is a left-handed hitter.
The irony is profound, and it really points to the sheer unpredictability of baseball. The front office specifically knew they were deficient in right-handed hitters capable of doing damage against left-handed pitching.
Right, so they invested heavily in veterans to address this exact vulnerability.
Yes. Yet, the player currently keeping the offense afloat, driving in runs at a top 5 pace in the entire league, is a depth piece who hits from the left side. It forces us to analyze his profile and ask, is Tristan Gray developing into the new Willie Castro?
Oh, I love that comparison. Willie Castro was that highly versatile, indispensable super utility player for the Twins.
Exactly.
He was a guy who could, grab a glove, play 4 different positions in a single week, and just found a way to be valuable every single day.
Castro was the ultimate duct tape for a flawed roster. He stepped in wherever there was an injury or a bad matchup, and he provided these random pockets of elite production that kept the team afloat during long slumps.
And in a grueling 162-game season, you absolutely require those random anomalies, right?
You have to have them. You need the guy who comes out of nowhere for a 3-week hot streak to carry the offense while your established stars are freezing at the plate. The critical question for the Twins management right now is whether Gray's current production is sustainable or if it's merely a statistical blip.
So what does the history say? Are we looking at a legitimate late career breakout, like maybe a Justin Turner situation where a guy just figures out his swing plane at age 30? Or is this just a classic case of a hot streak in a cold April?
Well, looking objectively at his historical data, you really have to temper expectations. His profile as a veteran minor league lifer suggests that regression is coming.
Right, eventually the league figures you out.
Exactly. Pitchers at the major league level are incredibly adept at finding the holes in a hitter's swing. They have advanced scouting, heat maps, and high-speed cameras.
So they'll find his weak spots pretty quickly.
Within a few weeks, yes. They will realize they can exploit certain zones against Gray, perhaps elevating four-seam fastballs or burying sweeping sliders down and away. But you cannot discount the immediate momentum he is providing. In that Friday game, he had 5 RBIs total. He is maximizing his limited opportunities.
He definitely is. But, Tristan Gray's grand slam is an amazing story, but the underlying reason he was even standing in that batter's box is actually a massive red flag for the franchise.
Yeah, that is the darker side of this story.
Because this 30-year-old depth piece had to play, because their top prospect, Brooks Lee, is fundamentally struggling.
It is a glaring indictment of where Brooks Lee is at offensively right now. The Twins were facing left-handed pitching in that game.
And Brooks Lee is a highly touted switch hitter.
Right. Meaning he should have a natural advantage batting right-handed against a lefty, but manager Derek Shelton chose to bunch his switch-hitting prospect and start Tristan Gray, a left-handed hitter, in a left-on-left matchup. That tells you that the internal confidence in Lee's right-handed swing is basically non-existent at this point.
We have seen Lee looking completely lost from the right side, just like fishing after down-and-away slop. So Gray steps into that void and delivers. But the contrast on this team is staggering.
It really is 2 different teams right now.
You have Gray doing the impossible, and right next to him in the lineup, you have baffling systemic failures. This brings up what we are calling the sombrero paradox, which I think really captures the madness of this first week.
The paradox perfectly highlights how disjointed the offensive production truly is.
Let's look at Matt Wallner. He is supposed to be a cornerstone power threat for this franchise.
He is a key piece of their future, theoretically.
Right. But in the exact same game where the Twins scored 10 runs, Matt Wallner suffered a golden sombrero. Now, for anyone who might not know the term, that means he struck out 4 times. Wait, no. He struck out 5 times in a single game. A platinum sombrero.
Yeah, the platinum sombrero. It's brutal.
5 strikeouts, while his teammates are rounding the bases, hitting grand slams, and scoring 10 runs.
The statistical difficulty of striking out 5 times in a game where your team is producing that much offense is actually quite high.
Because you need the at-bats, right?
Exactly. Think about the mechanics of a baseball game. To get 5 at-bats, your team has to be turning the lineup over constantly. That means Wallner was repeatedly coming up to the plate with men on base in advantageous situations, with the opposing pitcher already laboring and operating from the stretch.
So the pitcher's already stressed. The bases are loaded or there's traffic.
Right.
And Wallner still strikes out.
Right. In every single one of those high-leverage moments, he failed to put the ball in play.
So what is happening to Wallner mechanically? Why is he, and honestly the rest of this team, so incredibly bad against lefties right now?
It comes down to the biomechanics and visual processing of a left-on-left matchup.
Okay, let's get into the weeds on this.
When a left-handed batter faces a left-handed pitcher, the pitcher's release point is highly problematic. The pitcher steps slightly toward the third base side of the rubber, and his arm slot comes from an angle that makes the ball appear as though it is starting its trajectory behind the batter's back.
Oh, wow. Or like it's heading straight for their ribs.
Exactly.
So the hitter's natural instinct is to flinch or pull away.
Precisely. Well, it is a natural human preservation instinct, really. Because of that visual illusion, the left-handed batter will often instinctively open their front shoulder too early to clear space.
And once that shoulder flies open, what happens?
The moment that front shoulder flies open, the entire kinetic chain breaks down. The bat path drags through the zone, and the hitter is completely exposed on the outer half of the plate.
And major league pitchers definitely know this.
Oh, left-handed pitchers absolutely know this, so they attack with sweeping sliders that start over the middle and break sharply away. The batter, whose shoulder is already open, ends up helplessly waving at a pitch that finishes 6 inches off the outside corner. That is exactly what we are seeing with Wallner.
And the team numbers back that up completely. I mean, the Twins are abysmal against left-handed pitching right now. They are ranking 25th in all of baseball with a .458 OPS.
To contextualize how poor that is, look at their WRC plus against lefties. They currently have a weighted runs created plus of 45.
Wait, hold on. I see WRC plus thrown around a lot in these analytical articles. Can you do a quick explain it like I'm 5 on that?
Gladly.
Because I know batting average and on-base percentage, but WRC plus always trips me up. Why is it a better metric?
So weighted runs created plus, or WRC plus MASOM, is a statistic that attempts to quantify a player's total offensive value and measure it against the league average. It takes into account everything a hitter does: walks, singles, home runs, and weighs them by their actual run scoring value. Then it adjusts for ballpark factors.
Oh, right, because stadiums matter.
Exactly. Hitting a fly ball in the thin air of Colorado is much easier than hitting one in the thick marine layer of Seattle, so the stat neutralizes that. The scale is set so that 100 is always the league average. If you have a WRC plus of 120, you are 20% better than the league average.
Okay, so if the Twins have a WRC plus of 45 against left-handed pitching.
It means they are 55% worse than the league average offense.
Wow.
It is a staggering lack of production. It means they're essentially fielding a lineup of pitchers against lefties. And the core of the problem is not just young guys like Wallner struggling with the visual illusion we just discussed.
Right, it's the veterans, too.
Exactly. The established veterans, the guys brought in to fix this exact issue, are completely frozen. Byron Buxton, Victor Caratini, Josh Bell, these guys are hovering dangerously close to the Mendoza line.
The Mendoza line, named after the historically light-hitting shortstop Mario Mendoza, being that dreaded .210 batting average threshold.
Right.
When your established veterans are struggling that badly, it leaves massive gaping holes in the offense. I mean, Victor Caratini has a .143 OPS against lefties right now.
That is almost hard to comprehend.
It is. And Josh Bell is a switch hitter who historically does severe damage from the right side against lefties, but he is offering virtually no protection.
The front office recognized this flaw over the winter. They really tried to patch the hole by acquiring Bell and Caratini. But because those veterans are failing to execute, the team's lack of overall outfield depth forces them to run lefties like Wallner out there against left-handed pitching anyway.
So they're stuck.
They are exposing their young players to matchups they are historically and statistically doomed to fail in, simply because the veterans cannot carry the load.
This is where I really want to push back on behalf of the listener, because there is a very obvious challenger waiting in the wings while these veterans flail away.
We're talking about Keyshaw.
Yes. Let's introduce 23-year-old Luke Keyshaw. This kid looks incredibly comfortable. I mean, he has 8 hits in his first 8 games. He just successfully stole his first base of the 2026 season on April 3rd. He looks entirely ready for the big stage.
He definitely has swagger right now.
Right. So if the established veterans look absolutely frozen at the plate, why shouldn't Keyshaw instantly be moved up higher in the batting order? If I am a fan, I am screaming to put the kid in the three-hole.
I understand the enthusiasm, and the fan base's desire for immediate gratification is completely valid. When a rookie comes up and shows an immediate pulse, the instinct is to push him to the front of the line.
Naturally.
But we have to look at the psychological development of a major league player. Moving a rookie up too fast, placing him in the three-hole or the cleanup spot, shifts the entire context of his at-bats.
How so? Fastball's a fastball, right? Doesn't matter what inning or what spot in the order he hits it.
It does not matter physically, but mentally. Huge difference. Hitting 7th or 8th, Keyshaw is protected. The pressure is low. The opposing pitcher is often trying to attack the zone aggressively just to get to the top of the order.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But if you move Keyshaw to the three-hole, he suddenly becomes the focal point of the opposing manager's game plan. He will start seeing elite, high-leverage relievers. He will stop seeing fastballs over the plate and start seeing heavy doses of secondary pitches on the margins.
So they'll pitch around him.
Exactly. You do not want to shatter a young player's confidence by asking him to carry a structurally broken offense in the first month of his major league career.
But isn't the alternative just accepting failure? Like you were telling me we should just keep trotting out highly paid veterans who are either striking out or hitting weak grounders directly into the shift, purely out of respect for their veteran status.
It's not about respect, it's about roster management.
But look at what Keyshaw did against Kansas City. He had a 2 RBI double in that 7th inning. He is turning on elevated fastballs. He is making the adjustments that the veterans are completely failing to make.
The internal logic of the clubhouse hierarchy is undeniably being severely tested right now. I will give you that. You make a strong point about performance over pedigree.
Right.
Due to the team's disastrous roster construction regarding right-handed bats, manager Derek Shelton's hand might be completely forced. Keyshaw obviously does not have the historical resume of a Josh Bell, but right now his bat speed and pitch recognition are vastly superior.
And you have to win games today.
Exactly. In the major leagues, you have to win games today. If Keyshaw is the only player making consistent hard contact against left-handed pitching, Shelton has to move him up, regardless of whose ego it bruises in the veteran clubhouse.
You just have to ride the hot hand when the weather is this cold. Because this offense's margin of error is essentially zero.
Practically non-existent.
When your lineup is top-heavy, prone to striking out 5 times a game and struggling to hit lefties, your starting pitching has to be absolutely flawless.
And unfortunately for the Twins, the starting pitching is currently flashing massive warning signs of its own.
Yeah, let's shift gears and focus on Bailey Ober's concerning home opener start. Now, looking at the box score, it ended up being a win.
It was a win, yes.
But anyone watching the game saw him struggle immensely with his command in the freezing cold. And the key stat here, the one that should make every Twins fan incredibly nervous, is that Ober's fastball sat at an incredibly low 88.6 miles per hour.
Let's really sit with that specific number for a moment. 88.6 miles per hour.
It's not great.
In the modern Major League Baseball landscape, the average fastball velocity is sitting around 94 to 95 miles per hour. Every lineup is packed with hitters who train on high-speed pitch machines.
So throwing 88 is basically batting practice for them.
Throwing an 88 miles per hour fastball in 2026 is terrifyingly dangerous. It is a velocity that Major League hitters will absolutely feast on if it is not perfectly located.
I want you to put yourself in Ober's shoes for a minute, though. Because the game time temperature for that home opener was 38 degrees.
Freezing.
It was a classic freezing Minnesota afternoon. Your breath is fogging up. You are standing on a dirt mound that feels like concrete. Is it possible that his 88.6 miles per hour fastball is simply a result of cold weather physics? Like, how does 38 degrees actually affect a pitcher's grip?
The physics of cold weather pitching are incredibly detrimental. First, you have the capillary constriction in the pitcher's fingers.
Capillary constriction.
Blood flow is reduced to the extremities to keep the core warm, which means the pitcher physically loses tactile sensation in his fingertips. You literally cannot feel the subtle raised seams of the baseball.
That sounds awful for a pitcher.
It is. Second, the leather of the baseball itself hardens and becomes incredibly slick in cold temperatures. Finally, pitchers rely on rosin bags to get a grip, but rosin requires a mixture of sweat and friction to activate and become sticky.
And in 38-degree weather, you are definitely not sweating.
Exactly, so you have a slick ball, numb fingers, and ineffective rosin.
That makes total sense. But we also have to talk about the ghost in the room, because there might be something much darker happening psychologically with him. Pablo Lopez.
Yes. The context of Pablo Lopez is absolutely critical to understanding the pressure on Bailey Ober right now.
It's a huge shadow hanging over the team.
In February, devastating news broke across the franchise. Pablo Lopez underwent UCL surgery and is out for the entire 2026 season.
Now, for those who only casually follow the medical side of baseball, what exactly is the UCL and why is this surgery a season ender?
The UCL is the ulnar collateral ligament. It is a thick band of tissue on the inside of the elbow that connects the humerus to the ulna. During the acceleration phase of a baseball pitch, the elbow is subjected to extreme valgus stress. Basically, your arm is trying to bend outward in a way it is not designed to go.
Ouch.
The UCL is the primary stabilizer preventing your elbow from literally snapping apart. When it tears, the pitcher requires what is famously known as Tommy John surgery, where they harvest a tendon from elsewhere in the body to reconstruct the ligament. The recovery process involves completely rebuilding the arm's strength and mechanics, which takes a minimum of 12 to 18 months.
So the Twins lose their ace, the undisputed anchor of their rotation, before a single pitch is even thrown in the regular season.
A catastrophic blow.
Does that mean Ober is out there overthrowing? Like, is he losing his complex mechanics because he is terrified of the immense pressure of replacing Lopez at the top of the rotation? I mean, Ober is a giant human being, 6'9".
He is massive.
He has a lot of moving parts in his delivery. If he is tense, if he is trying too hard to be the ace and manufacture velocity, do those mechanics break down?
It is almost certainly a combination of both the environmental factors and the psychological weight. Ober has never been a flamethrower. Even at his absolute peak, he was averaging around 92 miles per hour.
Right.
He's a pitcher who relies on extreme precision and something called pitch tunneling to survive.
Wait, hold on. Explain tunneling. Why does that matter if the ball is still going slow?
Pitch tunneling is the art of making two entirely different pitches look absolutely identical for the first 20 to 30 feet out of the pitcher's hand.
Okay, so they look the same.
Yes, the ball travels down the exact same imaginary tunnel in the air. A batter has roughly 250 milliseconds to decide whether to swing and where to swing. They have to make that decision based on the initial trajectory of the pitch before it breaks.
Okay, so how does Ober's velocity drop actually affect his tunneling?
Ober's primary weapon is his changeup, which sits around 83 miles per hour. When he throws a healthy 92 miles per hour fastball, there is a 9-mile-per-hour gap between the two pitches.
Which is a good gap?
A great gap. To a hitter, that gap is deceptive. The changeup looks like a fastball coming down the tunnel, so the hitter gears up for 92 miles per hour. By the time the brain realizes it is an 83 miles per hour changeup, the bat is already swinging through the zone before the ball arrives.
They're way out in front.
Exactly. But when Ober's fastball dips below 90, down to that terrifying 88.6 miles per hour mark,
The gap shrinks dramatically. It becomes like a 5-mile-per-hour gap instead of a 9-mile-per-hour gap.
exactly, the pitches start bleeding into each other. A 4 or 5 mile per hour difference gives the major league hitter just enough extra milliseconds of reaction time to adjust their swing mid-flight.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you leave an 88.6 miles per hour fastball over the heart of the plate and your changeup is no longer deceptive enough to keep them off balance, it does not matter how good your control is.
And we saw the result of that, didn't we?
We did. Tyler O'Neill hit a massive 3-run homer off an 88.8 miles per hour sinker. Ober only generated 2 whiffs on 56 pitches in that start.
2 swings and misses on 56 pitches. That is insane. That means hitters are seeing absolutely everything he's throwing clearly.
Clear as day.
And because he is laboring so hard to get outs, he is not going deep into games. He only lasted 4 innings. And this triggers the next catastrophic phase of this week's analysis. Because when the starting pitcher leaves in the 4th inning, a massive domino effect crashes directly into the bullpen.
It is a simple, brutal mathematical equation. There are 27 outs in a baseball game. If your starting pitchers cannot provide length and consume those outs, your bullpen will inevitably collapse under the sheer volume of innings they are required to cover.
I like to think of the bullpen like a battery on a smartphone, you know.
Okay, let's hear it.
If your starting pitcher is your phone charger, and he unplugs at 40% battery because he only went 4 innings, your bullpen is the battery draining for the rest of the day. You can handle that once or twice. But if every starter unplugs early by the 8th inning of the 3rd game of the week, your phone is on low power mode, the screen is dimming, apps are crashing, that system is just completely out of juice.
The smartphone battery analogy is highly accurate. And we saw the phone completely die on April 1st. The ultimate breaking point was incredibly visible. In the loss to Kansas City, the bullpen issued a catastrophic 7 walks.
Oh, man.
7 free passes to major league hitters.
You simply cannot win baseball games when you are gifting the opposition 90 feet over and over again without them even having to swing the bat.
And this is where we see the ripple effect of front office decisions, injuries, and roster limitations. Look at Mick Abel.
Yeah, let's talk about Abel.
They had to use him to piggyback off Bailey Ober's short start. Abel is supposed to be a starter himself, developing a rhythm. Instead, he comes out of the bullpen and needs 81 pitches just to get 10 outs.
That is just painful.
He matched his entire spring training walk total in a single regular season appearance.
81 pitches for 10 outs is grueling. It means every at-bat is a full count, every batter is fouling pitches off, and the defense is just standing out in the cold for ages.
Because Ober and Abel cannot pitch deep, manager Derek Shelton is forced to use back-end guys like Cole Sands and Justin Topa out of their intended high-leverage roles just to eat innings.
Right.
And worse, when the middle tier of the bullpen is exhausted, they are relying on fringe waiver wire acquisitions and taxi squad arms who historically have massive red flags in their profiles.
Let's look at one of those fringe guys, Garrett Acton. He is the guy walking people, right?
He is a prime example. The Twins traded for Garrett Acton from the Marlins right before the season started. If you look at his minor league profile, you can see why a front office would gamble on him. He has elite strikeout stuff. His fastball has movement in the 97th percentile of all professional pitchers.
Right, okay, so if his fastball moves that much, why is he struggling so badly?
Because movement without command is just a wild pitch. In the major leagues, his strikeout-to-walk ratio is an abysmal .71. That means he walks significantly more guys than he strikes out. The physics of his extreme spin rates make the ball nearly uncontrollable for him. He has no idea where it is going. He also gives up over 4 home runs per 9 innings at the major league level.
So the front office brings in a guy who throws hard but has zero command, places him in a freezing 38-degree environment where even the best pitchers cannot grip the slick baseball, into a situation where the bullpen is already exhausted and the team is trailing.
Yes.
It is a recipe for absolute disaster.
It creates a tactical nightmare for Derek Shelton. Does he burn his one reliable high-leverage arm, Cole Sands, in the 6th inning to stop the bleeding and prevent the game from getting out of hand? Or does he save Sands for a save situation that might never materialize while agonizingly watching guys like Cody Funderburk and Garrett Acton walk the bases loaded?
And tactical nightmares breed sheer, unfiltered frustration. High-leverage innings, freezing weather, an exhausted bullpen, an offense that cannot hit lefties. It creates an emotional powder keg inside the dugout.
It definitely does.
And that powder keg exploded in the form of a historic clash with Major League Baseball's newest technology, the ABS meltdown.
This is perhaps the most fascinating psychological and strategic event of the entire week. Manager Derek Shelton became the first manager in Major League Baseball history to be ejected over the automated ball strike, or ABS challenge system.
Let me set the scene for you, because the drama here is incredible. It is March 30th, top of the 9th inning against the Baltimore Orioles. The Twins are trailing 8-6. The weather is miserable. The players are frustrated, but they're trying to mount a desperate late-game comeback.
The tension is extremely high.
Veteran Josh Bell is at the plate. He works the count to 3-2. The pitch comes in, and the human home plate umpire calls it ball 4. Bill immediately drops his bat, starts taking his elbow guard and shin guard off, and jogs down to first base. The tying run is coming to the plate. Momentum is shifting. But wait. The Baltimore pitcher, Ryan Helsley, immediately taps his cap to signal a challenge. He wants the robot umpire to review the pitch.
And this is where the cold mathematics of the ABS system come into play. The system utilizes a sophisticated array of Hawkeye cameras positioned around the stadium that map a 3-dimensional polygon over home plate, perfectly adjusted to Josh Bell's specific height and stance.
It's crazy how precise it is.
It is. The computer analyzes the trajectory of the 3-2 pitch and determines that the ball caught the absolute mathematical edge of the strike zone. The human umpire is alerted in his earpiece. The call is overturned. Strike 3, Josh Bell is out.
And Derek Shelton absolutely loses his mind. He storms out of the dugout screaming at the umpires.
Yeah.
But he is not arguing about the pitch being a ball or a strike, because you cannot argue with the computer's polygon. He is arguing that Helsley did not tap his cap fast enough to initiate the challenge.
Right. There's a very short window, roughly 3 seconds, to ask for a review so teams don't drag down the pace of play.
So Shelton is arguing a technicality of timing, and the umpire tosses him from the game.
Which has led to a massive debate across the baseball world about managerial strategy, leadership optics, and adjusting to new technology.
Okay, here is my take, And I am going to defend Derek Shelton fiercely on this one.
I'm curious to hear this.
I think Shelton was playing absolute 4D chess. Look at the context of his team. They are freezing, they are striking out constantly, their starting pitchers are failing, and the bullpen is walking the stadium. In the innings prior to this ejection, we saw Twins players emotionally misusing their ABS challenges out of pure, unadulterated rage.
You are referring to Matt Wallner's at-bat.
Yes, Wallner took a pitch that was clearly a strike right down the middle of the plate. But he had been striking out all day, he was furious with himself, and he challenged the call anyway. It was a purely emotional, irrational reaction, and it burned one of their precious 2 challenges.
It was a very poor use of a challenge.
Exactly. Shelton saw his team fracturing under the psychological weight of this new system. I argue that Shelton needed to get ejected in that 9th inning. He went out there and screamed about a timing technicality to absorb the team's collective frustration. He threw himself on the grenade so his players did not have to carry that anger. He took a bullet to protect their psyches.
It is an interesting psychological defense of his actions, I'll grant you that. But looking at it from an organizational standpoint, it is a terrible look for a first-year manager.
Really?
I don't see it that way. Getting tossed over a procedural technicality, arguing about whether a pitcher tapped his hat 1 second too late against a computer-calibrated strike in a tight game, does not project leadership.
Why not? It shows his players that he has their backs when things are going wrong.
Because it looks desperate, not calculated. Consider why Shelton was hired. He was brought in to replace Rocco Baldelli, specifically to establish a new, forward-thinking, highly analytical culture.
Okay, fair point.
He is supposed to be the manager who understands the nuances of the new rules better than anyone. The stadium replay clearly showed Helsley tapped his hat almost immediately. The human home plate umpire missed the signal, but the base umpire saw it and acknowledged it.
So Shelton didn't even really have a case.
No. Shelton storming out of the dugout and screaming about a procedural delay when the computer mathematically proved his hitter took a strike makes him look like an old-school manager yelling at a cloud. It distracts from the actual performance issue. Josh Bell took a strike in a high-leverage situation.
But you have to admit, the dynamic of arguing with a robot umpire fundamentally changes the sport. For a century, what was the point of a manager coming out to kick dirt? It was to fire up the team and maybe influence the human umpire's next call.
True.
But what is the point of kicking dirt if the computer has already printed the receipt?
And that is the exact reason Shelton should have stayed in the dugout. When you argue with a human umpire, you are fighting for the subjective margin of error. You are trying to plant a seed of doubt in the human element for the next borderline call.
Right.
When you argue with an ABS system, you are just throwing a tantrum against undeniable mathematics. It is a futile exercise that wastes emotional energy the team desperately needed to save for the actual at-bats remaining in the game.
Okay, let's look at how these ABS challenges are actually impacting the players on the field, because the data we are seeing so far is fascinating. During spring training, there was a stark contrast between who was successful with these challenges and who was essentially throwing them into the garbage.
It all comes down to the distinct psychological profiles and spatial awareness of the players initiating the challenge. The early data shows that catchers are thriving with the system and hitters are completely struggling.
Right. The catchers, guys like Ryan Jeffers and Victor Caratini, were highly successful. And it makes sense. They know the zone intimately. They literally spend their entire professional lives framing pitches, analyzing the three-dimensional trajectory of the ball from the pitcher's hand all the way into their glove.
They are experts at spatial memory.
Jeffers had a rough start with the new tech, going 0 for 2 initially, but he adjusted rapidly. Caratini went 2 for 2 on his challenges in a single game. They are entirely unemotional about it. They view the challenge as a cold transaction based on spatial memory.
Contrast that clinical approach with the hitters. In spring training, Twins hitters were successful on only 18 of 43 challenges.
Wow, that's bad.
That is a terrible percentage that hurts the team. And we saw that emotional failure carry over into the regular season. Byron Buxton burned a challenge in the very first inning on a full count pitch that wasn't even close to being a ball.
It was right down the middle.
And then Wallner burned the second challenge in the 7th inning with the bases loaded on a pitch that was blatantly in the zone.
Why do you think hitters are so universally bad at analyzing the zone compared to catchers?
Because for a hitter, a called strike 3 is an intensely personal failure. It is a severe emotional blow. You are standing there in the box, adrenaline pumping, the crowd is screaming. You have made a split-second, high-stakes decision not to swing the bat, and you are instantly told by an authority figure that you are wrong.
So it's an ego thing.
The immediate human reaction is defensive. The ego steps in and says, no, I couldn't be wrong, the umpire must be wrong. So hitters challenge out of reflex, out of pride, rather than relying on objective spatial awareness.
Which is exactly what happened to Wallner. He gets rung up on a cutter that bends low and inside. The television announcer, Justin Morneau, pointed out that the physical angle of Wallner's stance might have made it incredibly hard for him to actually see where the ball crossed the plate.
That is highly likely.
But if you cannot see it clearly, you absolutely cannot challenge it. You only get 2 challenges for the entire game. Once you lose them, you are completely exposed.
And the consequences of losing those challenges early in the game are severe and immediate. Because Wallner burned that second challenge in the 7th inning out of pure emotion, the Twins had 0 challenges left for the rest of the game.
And what happened in the very next inning?
The exhausted bullpen arm, Mick Abel, threw a pitch that the Twins desperately needed a strike call on. It looked borderline right on the black of the plate, but they could not challenge it to get the call overturned. It was called a ball.
Oh, man, that hurts.
That extra ball resulted in a walk, which eventually pushed across the go-ahead run for the opposition.
That is incredible. A direct causal link from an emotional hitter's ego-driven challenge in the 7th inning to losing the game in the 8th inning. It is brutal.
It introduces an entirely new layer of game theory to baseball. Managers have to figure out when to use these challenges. Do you hoard them and save them exclusively for the late innings? Do you mandate a clubhouse rule that only catchers, with their unemotional spatial awareness, are allowed to initiate a challenge?
That might not be a bad idea, honestly.
Because if you have an emotional player burning challenges in the 1st inning on a pitch down the middle, you are leaving your team completely defenseless in high-leverage situations later in the game.
Wait, this also totally changes the dynamic of pitch framing, right? When the ABS system was announced, everyone thought it would completely destroy the value of a framing catcher. We thought the art of quietly pulling a ball back into the strike zone was dead. But if teams only have 2 challenges, framing becomes almost a psychological weapon.
That is the most fascinating strategic evolution of the new rules. If a highly skilled catcher can steal a borderline strike through elite framing, he forces the opposing hitter into a painful psychological dilemma.
Like, does the hitter burn a challenge to prove the pitch was actually a ball?
Exactly. If the hitter is wrong, his team loses one of their precious challenges. If he is right, the call is overturned. But here is the brilliant part. If the offensive team has already burned their 2 challenges earlier in the game, that framing catcher has free rein to expand the strike zone, just like in the old days.
Oh, that is so sneaky. I love it.
He knows the batter cannot appeal to the robot. The human element of pitch framing has not been erased. It has been weaponized within a new framework of scarcity.
That is wild. It really is a massive game of chess within the game now. You are constantly monitoring how many challenges the other team has before deciding how aggressively your catcher should frame pitches. So, to bring this massive week of information all back together, what does this all mean for the hierarchy of the clubhouse, the management, and the overall trajectory of the Minnesota Twins after 1 week?
It means they are a team operating on a razor's edge. You have brilliant flashes of individual resilience, like Tristan Gray hitting a 110 miles per hour grand slam and single-handedly proving why having veteran super utility depth in the minor leagues is a necessary insurance policy.
Right.
You have young players like Luke Keeschel showing poise and bat speed that the highly paid veterans currently lack. But underneath those bright spots, you have structural rot.
Structural rot is a heavy phrase, but looking at the data, it fits perfectly. The established veterans are failing against left-handed pitching to a historic degree, carrying a WRC plus of 45. The starting pitchers, clearly traumatized by the loss of Pablo Lopez's UCL, are throwing 88.6 miles per hour fastballs and relying on a dangerously shrunken velocity gap to survive against modern hitters.
Yes, the rotation is extremely fragile right now.
And the bullpen is handing out 7 walks a game because they are overtaxed and forced to rely on guys with .71 strikeout-to-walk ratios who cannot command their elite spin rates.
And presiding over all of this is a manager who's getting ejected for arguing procedural technicalities with a computer, while his players burn through their strategic challenges out of sheer emotional frustration. It is a team that has not yet figured out its identity under Derek Shelton.
That's very true.
They are capable of a gritty 38-degree Minnesota Classic win, but they are equally capable of a freezing, lifeless 7-1 loss the very next day.
Which circles us right back to the beginning of our deep dive. We talked about how when things go wrong, we want medical precision. We want a clean x-ray showing exactly what is broken so we can fix it. But the Twins' first week is the furthest thing from a clean x-ray.
It is a messy, messy picture.
It is a chaotic mix of spectacular highs and baffling lows. The thermometer really dictated the week. A gutsy win in the freezing cold, driven by a minor league lifer's 110 miles per hour swing, followed by a 7-1 loss that provided hard evidence that the bats, and maybe Bailey Ober's arm, might still be completely frozen.
The tactical analysis of this first week leaves us with a deep, almost philosophical question about the future of the sport, particularly regarding the implementation of the ABS system. We have spent this time discussing the mechanics of hitting lefties, the physics of cold weather, and the game theory of challenges. But consider the psychological toll this new technology takes on the athletes.
What do you mean by the psychological toll?
For 150 years, the game of baseball provided a built-in psychological safety net for the hitter. Baseball is a game built on failure. Even the best hitters fail 7 out of 10 times.
Yeah, a .300 batting average is elite, which means failing 70% of the time.
Exactly. A batter could strike out looking in a crucial game-deciding situation, walk back to the dugout, and tell himself and his teammates that the human umpire blew the call. He's blind, the pitch was 2 inches off the plate. It was a coping mechanism. It allowed hitters to protect their fragile confidence and process their failure externally.
You could always blame the human element.
Yeah.
You could always tell yourself you had the right eye, but the umpire ruined the at-bat.
But now, with the ABS challenge system, that safety net is entirely gone. If you challenge a called third strike and the robot umpire mathematically proves, with a 3-dimensional polygon, that the pitch caught the zone, there is no one left to blame. You are facing cold, infallible, unarguable data. It places the entirety of the failure squarely on the hitter's shoulders.
Wow. So the real question going forward is, how will this specific generation of hitters, players who have been conditioned their entire lives to argue the margins and blame the umpire, handle the crushing mental burden of unarguable failure? When the robot tells you that you are mathematically wrong in front of 30,000 people, how do you protect your ego enough to step back into the box for your next at-bat?
That is the ultimate psychological hurdle this team and every team across the league must overcome this season. The data removes the excuses. Now it is just the player, the pitch, and the undeniable truth.
That is a fascinating, heavy thought to chew on. In baseball, the data and the 110 miles per hour exit velocities only tell half the story. The rest is played on the dirt, and clearly mostly inside the players' heads. Keep questioning the game, keep digging into the nuances of what you're watching, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.